Cool. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining in. We wanted to talk a little bit about how to give a presentation in a very short amount of time and how to make it actually impactful and useful. So we gathered some tips that we three have gathered over the time, and let's just jump right into it. So in the first part, we talk a little bit about what you can do before you give the presentation. Yeah. So when you plan out the presentation, one thing you should plan ahead is that you do not try to explain your complete paper or every single detail of the paper. You won't have the time for that. But what you can do is you can engage the audience and explain them why the problem you're talking about is interesting and why an audience member should actually go to the paper and read it.
Really important, continuing along that same line, to keep it simple. Give the main highlights and main points, because that is what will entice people to go and read the paper afterward.
Plan for a slightly shorter talk than what you have your time allotted for. That allows you to be nimble in terms of the information, the ideas that come up on screen. And also, no one is going to mind if you're a little bit short at the end of the day. Make sure that when you're talking slow and intentionally and at a pace that people can follow along clearly with what you're saying.
Another advice that I'm using quite often is that you should print your slides in an overview view. Simply the act of printing it and making annotations when you do your practice talks, etc., helps you a lot. And ideally, at the end, you don't need the overview view at all. It's like writing your little notes when you had an exam in school. Yeah, so it is kind of the same effect. So in the next part, we want to talk about the presentation itself.
It's important, as we sort of talked about at the beginning, to make sure you give people the main idea. You start with an overview and why what you're doing is important, then go into the details and then summarize the presentation. The way it was explained to me many years ago is tell the people what you're going to tell them, tell it to them, and then tell them what you told them.
When you're opening your talk, you want to start off with a bang. Try to engage people, bring them out of their email, and give them a reason to pay attention to your talk. Don't just simply open up with something like, "Welcome to my talk." People should know who you are, what you're doing, and why they should care.
So this seems a little bit like preaching to the choir, but actually leverage the power of visuals. So don't overflood your slides with text and try to read them afterwards. Just put some good visuals on there and explain these visuals, or explain the concepts with visuals. I think people are much more receptive to visual presentations than actually bullet points.
I'm a strong believer that you shouldn't read your slides. It doesn't matter if you don't cover all the points there. You should talk about the main key ideas, the one or two key ideas from your slides, and the people can glance at the slides and fill in the details.
And at the end of the day, remember, you can't fail. You're doing interesting and meaningful work, and that's why we're all excited to hear about it at VIS. You're in a room full of friendly colleagues, and while we all get a little bit nervous before we present, at the end of the day, people are excited to hear what you have to say.
So to summarize, we gave you a little bit of hints on what you can do before the presentation, during the presentation, talking about some pitfalls, and I hope this helps you in preparing your talk and keeping in within the time frame. Just be aware, it's really hard for the session chair if your talk is too long and they have to stop you and, in the worst case, cut off your microphone. You don't want to end up in that position. But that said, we are looking forward to see your presentations and hope for a very engaging VIS conference. Thank you very much.
Hendrik, you're muted.
Okay.
A baby could be a very strong hug.
Yeah, true. Your work has earned its place at VIS. You're doing interesting and... Yes. Sorry, guys, give me a minute here.